Hey, good evening, everybody. What's going on? It's me, John D. Villarreal here, and I'm joined on the phone by Paul F. Villarreal. Crazy news today, no doubt about it. And definitely our thoughts go out there to everybody that may be affected by this. And I mean, wow, there's so many. I've seen things on LinkedIn. Um, friends of mine, contacts, there's so many people I know. James Gutierrez comes to mind. There's so I don't want to leave anybody out. There's so many people. Silicon Valley Bank has, apparently failed. First of all, everything we're saying is all personal opinion only, not alleged facts, not cast any aspersions, all for entertainment purpose only. Please check disclaimer, not giving anybody advice, financial or otherwise. Everything you do is at your own risk. We're going to cover a lot of ground here, and I probably I don't want to commit to anything, but I might be covering this story all weekend. This is a massive story, and in my opinion, and I think it could portend a lot of things. I think it also speaks to a lot of things I've been talking about. And I said that 2023 was going to be the year that reality hit. And I want to be very careful how I talk about different things here, and we're going to do so in order. And I think that this is a huge deal, and it's hard to overstate this. I don't want to get hyperbolic. I've seen some stuff out there that, we'll talk about it. Let's set the table. Here's the bottom line. And I'm going to link on YouTube some information and some news clips. There's a lot to go over here. We're not going to stay too long tonight, maybe 20, 25, 30 minutes maximum tonight. And we'll cover it probably tomorrow. But basically, it's like this. Silicon Valley Bank is a huge, important bank. Mostly in Silicon Valley, has different branches around. It's very focused on technology. I've seen things like, I've dealt with Silicon Valley Bank before. When I was in Palo Alto doing the tech thing, I was at Wilson Sonsini, Rich and Rosati. Silicon Valley Bank was just a great bank. Everybody not everybody, but just so many people that if you're involved in tech or you're involved in the Valley in any way or VC, venture capital, so many of us have stories of Silicon Valley Bank. I'm not going to sit here and tell my stories and do all that. That may be for another time. But there was a fuel and an extra. Here's the short story on this. There was a lot of money flowing into tech, right? With the pandemic and the Zoom economy, all this, a lot of money is flowing in tech. A lot of things were working, in tech. And you see the deposits of Silicon Valley Bank that went up. And when you have a fractional banking system, and I don't want to get too technical, basically deposits come in, the bank then lends them out. There's a certain ratio there, a leverage that they can get on the deposits for how much deposits on hand versus how much they can lend out. And when the banks make money by if you have so much deposits and you give customers with deposits a certain interest rate or whatever that it is, and you lend it out at a higher interest rate, you make investments, you take that money, then you make investments with it, you make loans with it, etc. That's how you basically make money. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Obviously, banking's heavily regulated. I'm not alleging anything. I'm not going there and making any claims. Do your own research, etc. But that's the basic business, my opinion, overview of that. In this environment, what happened was so much, it almost reminds me of the housing bubble. There was in a lot of ways, it's a tech and a VC venture capital bubble. Money's fungible. It's global. It's going to chase returns. And tech was working for a long time. VC was working for a long time, particularly when other things weren't working because of the pandemic and things were shut down and people were supply chain shortage and all these different things. And so it was a huge fuel up of money that was chasing technology and that whole space, in my opinion. So I think it was something to I don't want to say exactly how much it is. I don't know if it's 2x, 3x, but it was I'm not making any claims, but there was a massive increase in deposits, in my opinion, percentage-wise, Silicon Valley Bank. They then put that money into long-term treasuries, long-term bonds, right? And so what happens, those were done at a low interest rate because interest rates are very low. Well, what's been happening lately? We've had this big spike of inflation and big spike in interest rates. And I'm just going to warn you out there, just because I know this is very much real life and a lot of people are going through a lot of stuff right now. And this is a news story. This is a business story. We're covering this live on LinkedIn. We're doing live on Facebook, live on YouTube as well. And I'm sponsored by Mellon, a division of Logitech, to do live streaming and covering, one of the things we do is covering business topics. So we're definitely doing that. But what I'm going to say here is that I'm also going to touch on politics. I'm going to touch on some different things because I think that's very important, in my opinion, to this story. And we're not trying to get partisan here, but I'm going to do my best analysis to explain what I think's going on here and what maybe the implications are. You can agree with me, you can disagree with me. I welcome your comments in the comment section as well. So when they had so much money, and they were used to doing business within their sphere, their lane of this tech VC lane, and they knew it. Now all of a sudden you've got all this money. It almost reminds me of like that. I'm not saying it's like this. I'm just trying to make an analogy. I'm not saying it's like this in any way, or that the diligence wasn't done. I'm not making any allegations, but I'm just saying, like, if you're, I'm going to age myself here. If you've seen this old movie, Richard Pryor, Brewster's Million, all of a sudden you get all this money and you have to deploy it. You have to spend it within a certain amount of time or whatever. And I'm not saying that's the case, but I'm just saying, like, they had all this money. And now you have to, and you have to, if you're a bank or you're a VC fund or whatever, if your job is to invest, you have to deploy that at some point. And so they put it into the long-term treasury. Now, in a normal, more stable interest rate environment, maybe that would have been a good play, right? But when interest rates spiked up so much, all of a sudden now, you can go out there, if you're an investor, you can see there's returns here. And we're going to talk about this with the VC markets and what's happening with interest rates and why venture capital and tech is going to be a tough play, in my opinion, in the near term here. Now, all of a sudden, if I can go out there as an investor today and get a bond for, I don't know what I'm not making any claims. I'm just all fake numbers, 5%, 6%, whatever. Then the value of the bonds that Silicon Valley Bank bought at 1.5%, 2%, whatever, they're going down. So now, and then all of a sudden they try to raise some money, investors and depositors, maybe there's a little bit of concern there. Maybe they got a little afraid. They start pulling money out, and then here we go. So I don't want to go over all the facts. I don't have all the articles in front of me. I will link to them. I have reviewed them. I want to cover the outline here because there's a lot to do here. I will probably discuss more of this over the weekend and get into more details here. But I think it's, rather than getting mired in the absolute facts of this, in the specifics, the minute by minute type of thing, which a lot of other news organizations out there, CNBC, Bloomberg, Fox Business, have done a great job of that. I think it's important to step back and really talk about high level what's going on and why. I talk a lot. We all know that. I want to turn it over to Paul here, Paul Villarreal, my guest, to get his take on this. And then I'm going to talk about what's next, what implications this could have for Silicon Valley. I mean, like I said, I was in Silicon Valley decades ago, and I've dealt with some of the top people. Silicon Valley Bank is such a huge name. It's really hard, if you're not in that ecosystem, to express how crucial this name is and what an impact can be. And depending on what happens, I've seen some reporters out there and some other people calling for a 1-to-1 bailout, dollar for dollar. I think I saw something like well over 90% of the deposits that were not exceed the federal FDIC insurance limits. So there's a lot of questions here about what's going to happen. And we're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars. I will look up the stats here and some of the articles while Paul does his comments. Paul, go ahead. What's your take on this?
Yeah. Now, first, let me just say I've got some information. I can't verify everything. This is what I'm seeing in different reports, and just kind of give you some backstory on all this and kind of put it in context. Supposedly, this is the second largest bank failure in American history, behind only the 2008 failure of Washington Mutual. So this is going to give you an idea of how big this is.
Huge.
And of course, 2008 was the large crash. Supposedly, the assets of the bank, of Silicon Valley Bank, when it failed, was $209 billion. I mean, that's massive. That's just crazy to even think about that. Further, apparently, Silicon Valley Bank had 29 offices throughout the United States and offices all over the world. I mean, like you said, I mean, if you're not in the tech zone, and John and I have been in that, it's hard to understand how crucial this is.
Crucial.
But this bank was and is. And, uh, but just the amount of money and just the hearing that it's supposedly the second biggest failure ever should give a pretty good idea of how important this is. This is a massive, massive failure, and I'm sure John will get into.
Oh yeah,
it has a lot to say about where things could be headed for tech.
Yeah, and let me just say this and put this out there. I mean, you know, I wouldn't be surprised. I almost expect that we're going to see some kind of bailout or some significant talk of bailout, because and again, this is the political aspect of it, from a political standpoint, you know, tech, I mean, I can see it cutting both ways, and I'm the political expert too, and we're going to talk about that's why we have to cover this aspect of it, because the political impact of this is so massive. Tech is so crucial for the Democratic Party, in my opinion, and the money is so huge. It's like, I mean, we're seeing Twitter files. We're seeing Elon Musk has said some stuff out there. He had a tweet. We should talk about that. Elon Musk he's got a tweet out there, and he's got, this was 5 hours ago, Elon Musk's Twitter, and this is quoting, I'll link to it. It has a cartoon type of thing, and there has two buttons. One button is, quote, crypto is a scam, keep money in banks. The other button is, banks are scams, keep money in crypto, and you can't decide which way to go. And I've had my criticisms of crypto. I've talked about that. I've talked about Miami Tech. I don't want to get too swerved into too many things, although Silicon Valley Bank has an office in Miami. So, I mean, all these things, that's what I'm saying. All these stories start coming around. And what have I always said? It's reality, reality, reality. Tech, VC, all these things should not be political. The reason I also bring this up is because we have the hearings on Congress right now with the Twitter files. And we've had back and forth with Chairman Jordan, with Chip Roy, Congressman Chip Roy. I mean, we've had a lot of different things out there. And tech is now seen, rightly or wrongly, Paul, and you can speak to this, as very political and very left-wing. And there's been, talks of shadow bans. There's been talk of censorship. We've had a Rumble that's been signing people up. I mean, there's been discussions with YouTube, and we're live on YouTube now, and we love the YouTube platform. But I mean, it's not always been easy being a conservative creator. Let's just say that. I don't want to get into politics right now. We'll get back to that. And no less than Elon Musk has talked about how the political spectrum has moved, that he used to be seen as left wing. Now he's seen as right wing, that things have gotten so crazy. And tech has been part of that. But part of this whole bailout set, and I'll line this up and I'll leave it up to you for a second, Paul, is you have student loan bailout that is now up in the Supreme Court. And that is, people don't know which way that's going to go. A lot of people criticize that, in the Republican Party has criticized that, and says, and not that I speak for the Republican Party, of course, but of course I have been involved in politics, and et cetera. I don't want to get too political here. I'm doing analysis here because it all relates. Because this will, believe me, this is, well, let me put it this way. I wouldn't be surprised if politicians and policymakers weigh in on this. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a political decision behind this. I wouldn't be surprised if some candidates on both sides are really weighing this out, because this can cut different ways. We just had East Palestine, right? With Norfolk Southern and that whole, toxic plume and everything like that. Was there a GoFundMe for that? Do we have people talking about a 1-for-1 bailout? I mean, how many people, how much breathless coverage have we had of that? Now, granted, I mean, and now we have this. Now we have student loans out there. Student loan so the student loan bailout is up and I apologize. I'm just thinking so fast. That's the problem being I'm thinking faster than I'm talking. Let me slow down. A lot of people criticize the student loan bailout, but there's a lot of students out there with the pandemic that they may have ran up a lot of debt. And I'm not taking one side or another. I'm not arguing one side or another. I'm just, and in full disclosure, my wife and I have a lot of student loans. I don't want to get too much in that, but I want to, and she doesn't like me talking about, us, but I just want to be honest with the audience and disclose that, okay? But how many graduates out there over the last few years got out of school during the pandemic or the tail end of the pandemic, and they may have ran up a lot of money in debt, and they couldn't get a job because people weren't hiring. You didn't have normal job fairs, all kinds of different. You had Zoom interviews, whatever, all kinds of massive disruptions. And I'm going to get back to that because it all relates, right? In my opinion, it really all relates. Inflation, pandemic, work from home, all these different things relate, and they all have impacts. And I think that everything's going to reset now. This changes the entire game. This changes the political landscape. This changes the business landscape. This changes so many different landscapes. And so I just owe it to the audience to be very, very upfront with this and try to give you my best. I was later here, Paul, but we have experience. I just needed to go on the air and talk to you about this, in my opinion. Okay. So let's say that the Supreme Court shuts that down. Then what does the Biden administration do? Let's say they do nothing, but then they bail out Silicon Valley Bank. President Biden, I don't know if what's being done with East Palestine? What are the optics of that going into 2024 for both parties? Think about that. I haven't fully game planned that out myself, right? I have some inclinations. I don't want to lay it out there yet. Maybe we talk about this over the weekend. But here's the other wrinkle to this. How many people in the tech sector went to a big college, have student loans? It could be a double hit for those people. Yeah, we can talk about the VCs. We can talk about the people that have cashed out, that have the big money. They've made it, and, all that type of stuff. But there's a lot of people that were just getting their career started, or mid-careers, or maybe they've done their home loan or all their assets and savings were in Silicon Valley Bank. There's a lot of different implications, and they still have student loans. So there's a lot of different implications here, Paul. Or their startup. They joined a startup. That was the only job they could get. Now the startup's done and they have the student loans. What I'm saying, Paul, is we have massive business implications and massive political implications. And I can't even run them all out right here. I can I'll talk about some different things, but we don't know which way this is going to go. But I'm telling you, in my opinion, it wouldn't surprise me if the implications are absolutely huge from many different aspects here. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah. I think they're going to be huge. I don't think there's any way around it. And I think that what you said is right. Look, there was already divergent opinions about the student loan bailouts. Like people who hadn't gone to college saying, hey, where's my bailout?
Sure.
And so now you said, well, what if the Supreme Court overturns the bailout? Then you have more fallout from Biden and et cetera. But then you said, are you going to bail out Silicon Valley Bank? And there's more politics on that. The way I think I view this personally, just as a reference point, is all the things that we have seen after FTX failed. It's like Then you start saying wow, there's all these donors to Democratic or whoever donors that Bankman.
Thank you for bringing that up. Go ahead.
Should we charge him? Is he going to get protected? So then you start getting into the political aspects of it. And so that really becomes a thing. And the other aspect of this, you can talk about the FTX tie-in, because I think it is appropriate here. Also, not only are you going to get ripple effects, certainly in Silicon Valley itself, you're going to get ripple effects in where other satellite offices were, like Miami, like other areas, because this bank failed. I saw Elon put a tweet up the other day. He was responding to someone else put a tweet basically saying, this is going to have a massive effect on investment in startups.
Right.
And there's no question about it.
Let me pause you for 1 second. I'll come right back to you. I like where you're going here. Okay. And it gives me a second to organize myself. I'm going to talk about the business aspect of it. So we're going to come back to the political aspect of it to wrap up, because I think that's where, what's next, because that affects. But from a business standpoint, if this bank fails, and you're only getting your FDIC money, the $250K whatever back, and that's it. Wow. From a business standpoint, that is just Armageddon for the tech sector, particularly for California. Now, I'm going to say this. California already had problems. For a long time, I thought because of different things in Silicon Valley, and in some ways, nothing too big to fail. I don't buy into that. But for the near term and medium term, Miami, we're going to take I'm thinking no way, right? Because I know I've worked in Silicon, I just know the strength that's there. And in some ways it's even better and bigger now. But because of, in my opinion, I don't want to get too political here, I think the policy failures, the cost of living, all kinds of different things. And now with tech getting so hit so hard, this is cataclysmic. If this, if you're only getting your FDIC money back, and Silicon Valley Bank is allowed to fail, and there's no big investor, white knight coming in here, whatever like that. I mean, this can be just, as I will say, cataclysmic for tech and for that business sector, VC investing, startups, everything like that in California. But I think we're at a point now where there were other viable places. Okay, scenario one, bank is allowed, FDIC gets paid back. There is no salvation. There's no one-to-one bailouts. There's no white knight coming in here, whatever you want to call it. I think then, Paul, the move from California could be dramatically accelerated. Okay,
Yeah.
it could spin out different, and the upside there is this could now give spotlight and opportunity for other tech areas and other tech sectors. That's scenario, but there's a lot more that can go into that too. Then do other banks move into that? I mean, who serves that market then? Do we see SVB too? Do we see a reorganization? I mean, what happens there? Is it I can't remember the different chapters of chapter 7, chapter 13. I don't know. That's not my specialty or whatever like that from a business standpoint. And again, I'm not alleging anything, not giving any advice, etc. But who steps up in that space? Because Silicon Valley Bank serves such an incredibly important function in that space. Is it Comerica? Is it Bank of Wells Fargo? I mean, who? I don't know. That's question one. Or question two. The second thing is, okay, let's say there's some kind of, people get 50% of the money back, whatever. I don't know. Then it's kind of like somewhere in between. Let's say they get, let's see, I can't go through everything here with the time allotted. I'll probably talk more this weekend. Let's say they get the 1-for-1. Let's say someone comes in and saves it, and it's all that. And here's the thing. Let's say Elon put some people together and said, what would the coverage of him be then? He went from loved, hated, to loved again. I mean, I don't know. It just shows. Anyway, that would be interesting. I don't want to comment on further than that. That would be interesting. Even if, as Paul was saying, everybody get the 1-for-1, everybody gets all their money back in the depositors, whatever. That avoids, I think, the cataclysm there, the apocalyptic outcome from a tech VC standpoint, startup standpoint, at least in Silicon Valley. But you're still think about, how do you feel about the tech VC sector now as an LP, limited partner and an investor in these funds or whatever? How do you feel as a VC deploying your money in these things now versus a week ago, versus a month ago, versus 6 months ago, versus 2 years ago? Right? If I can go get 5-6% in a bond that has a lot higher safer, why am I chasing 10%, 15% in high risk VC startups? Private equity. Why am I doing that? Right? 10%. When I can go get 6%, that's way reduced risk, and I can just really go with more focus on that. And I mean, how much does this free? I've been through tech crashes. I've been through 2 of them, right? I mean, I've seen it freeze up. This could freeze up it doesn't matter. You 1-for-1 bailout, doesn't matter. I mean, where do you think, how much VCs are going to invest now? Crypto, and there's another thing, a crypto bank just got, I think, some exchange or something. I can't remember, in the midst of the Silicon Valley Bank thing. I saw that there's a big name in crypto that is in trouble, in my opinion. Okay, so even if there's 1-for-1, bailout or whatever, you now have a just chill, a freeze potentially. I could see that. It wouldn't surprise me. I'm not making the call. It wouldn't surprise. I mean, maybe, I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if a freeze comes over the VC investment market right now. I think it's going to get rough, which in some ways may be good, because I think we were getting a little too ahead of our skis. I think we went from the crypto craziness into AI's everything, and here's the gold rush is here, now it's over here. And to some of that happens always in tech, and you have to have that exuberance, and you have to have that. And I'm bullish on AI. But I think there's a lot. And I was chatting I was commenting with a big name VC, and they liked my comment on LinkedIn. I'm like, look, I love AI, but here's where I don't think. I mean, people think that it's going to do everything, just like the self-driving cars. The self-driving cars are supposed to drive us all, in a certain amount of time until they weren't. And I'm bullish on that, but that's a big hurdle, right? I mean, in this sea of sameness, if everyone's doing AI, I don't want to get swerved here, but I'll just say this to finish the thought. If everybody's doing AI and ChatGPT is doing all your posts, stuff like that, then it's even more valuable to hear directly or live from an Elon Musk, right? Authenticity, human connection is still, so, but it all comes back to this. These bubbles, the more expansive these bubbles get, the more damage that they cause when they pop. And we've been in this series of bubbles now, in my opinion, to some degree, depends on the sector, for a bit here. And things were not making sense for the last, 2, 3, 5 years, whatever you want to call it, in terms of people thinking that, hey, if I just say the right things, and Sam Bankman-Fried, right, the FTX, and I'll turn right back over to you here in a second, Paul. If I say the right things, I can do anything. Or I'm not. This is my super rough paraphrase, by no means a quote or legend, anything, whatever like that. But this is my general, recollection, and I know that it's probably, I'm sure that it's wrong. Paraphrase about that. It doesn't matter. Forget about him. Here's what I'm saying. I think there was a vibe that if I just say the right things, do the right things, vote the right way, that, hey, I'm in the tech sector, I can be a VC. How many new VCs and new funds did we see? I mean, and some of these people were, and that's great, we're just out of college, or they dropped out of, or whatever, just out of, your grad school. It's like, that's great. And I can understand the one off, the two off, but I mean, it used to be that you had to have successful exits as an entrepreneur, or you came from my bank, like you had a lot of experience to get into this zone. And now it was just like, it reminded me of real estate. Back in 08, everybody was a real estate investor. It seemed like everybody was in the VC game or the angel game. Did that make sense? With theories, it didn't seem to make a ton of sense. Like, oh yeah, we're going to find all these deals that nobody else, all of our deals, nobody else is finding. Really? Well, because that's funny, because 100 other people have just said the same thing, but you're going to find all of your deals, nobody else wants, and they're all going to be great. That doesn't, I didn't say it. That's my, it's just, the rationales, I'm going to revise an amendment. I don't mean that. But I mean, the rationales, I didn't think I was hearing the strongest rationales. And I've been in a VC fund, right? I didn't think I was hearing the strongest investment rationales. And that's what I'm saying. There has to be a there. There was just too much froth. And we can work from home, and we can get this. I can live wherever and get the same money, and I can do 4 days work. And some of these things make sense, right? I mean, I think it's very interesting going forward, because the 4-day work week, I think, has been proven out in large degree by Microsoft and others. But what I'm saying is there's dramatic change, but there is maybe a sense that, like, hey, if I just vote the right way, a lot of people talk about how tech became very activist. Like, I mean, Elon's cut, and Paul, I'll turn over to you. Elon's cut so much workforce from Twitter, and they're more effective now. So what I think you're going to see now, and I'll come back to the politics of it. I don't want to get too much. I'll hit that on the end. What I think you're going to see is, no matter what, huge wake-up call. It wouldn't surprise me if you see a very frosty, if not freeze, on VC investments. It wouldn't surprise me if you see very much leanness in the tech sector from hiring and expenses and stuff like that. The super parties, the nonstop salaries. Hey, I just graduated from high school, I just graduated from college, and I'm going to get 250, 300, 400. All the benefits. I got all these. I said the right things. I'm an activist, where you can be at work and be an activist and stuff like that. Like those days wouldn't surprise me if those days are gone, done. Because you've seen Elon out there. People are seeing now. Meta just announced another round of layoffs. You're seeing Elon's getting back to basics. Tech is getting back to basics. Tech is about adding value. The reason why tech can command that kind of the VC returns, the big salaries, the public, is because they create massive value. So if you're not creating massive value, nobody cares who you voted for. Like it doesn't, like it's not sustainable. You can't hire 1,000 people. I'm just making up a totally fake right now. You can't hire 1,000 people just to make the point that basically do nothing but say how great, the Democrats are and how bad, the Republicans are, and we're activists all day and they're not adding value. That doesn't make sense. Right? And when everybody's a VC investor and then nobody's really a VC investor. I mean, that's not quite right, but you know what I'm saying? Like doesn't make sense. If it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. And what did I say before? Well, there's one economy. If you have the Main Street getting destroyed, sectors like hospitality and others getting destroyed, and interest rates and supply chain just going through the roof, you don't think that's going to affect you? Yes, it will. And so we have the Fed just cranking things up and up and up and up. It's going to be an impact. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, look, the way I make another analogy here for where I think tech is gotten to and contributing to all of this and basically just feeding what you're saying is, and some people will get this and some people won't, but it reminds me of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is at first, for its first three phases up through End Avengers Endgame, it was very tight. The movies were doing great. You had a very high quality product. Things were going extremely well, and you had big returns.
Well, let me say this super quick, not to interrupt you, but just to help you, and I'll zip it. The first three phases, particularly the first two, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I think we were collectors of comic books when we were kids. It was very much tied to source material. Right? So these were stories that we grew up with that we now could see with great effects on the screen. That is maybe different than some of the new. I'll let you say what you were going to say. I just want to put that in there.
Yeah, the thing is they were close to source material, and the production was tight. When you had people like Robert Downey Jr., who's an incredible actor, things made sense, and again, it was close to the source material. Whereas in stage 4, which just recently ended, people felt like they were starting to drift. They were starting to drift from the source material. They were starting to drift into just the content and stuff. And so it was started to see diminishing returns. And now, with the beginning of stage 5, which was the Ant-Man Quantumania show, the money on that was really poor in terms of the return based upon what they put in. And now, apparently, according to reports, Marvel's freaking out. I think the next installment's supposed to be the Marvels, which is Captain Marvel and other associated superheroes. They're going back, they're doing reshoots. They're like, look, we got to change it. In other words, and so the tech analogy is, things used to be very ship-shape, very tight, high-quality product and everything, and then as time has gone on, it's gotten looser, kind of loosey-goosey, and anybody can, like you said, anybody can be a VC, anybody can do anything, and every single idea is a good idea. Well, but it isn't.
It isn't.
And so if you put that out there, if you put these companies out there, or in the analogy, if you put these movies out there that aren't ship-shape, at some point people aren't going to do it. And it's not going to work anymore. Well, and that's where I think the tech sector has kind of gotten to.
Well, again, and it's so funny when I was talking about Miami Tech and stuff like that, and I don't want to get I don't want to get personal either, but I want to call anyone out. But it's about Silicon Valley Bank, but it makes that point. And I want to make 2 points here, and I want to come right back to you because I think I want to talk about Disney and I want to talk about Miami Tech. You have someone like me, right, myself, and I've got undergrad and law degree from Berkeley. I was at the top law firm with the top partner dealing with VCs, stuff like that, in Palo Alto. I have seen so many of the best, the legends. I don't want to sit here and all that. I've got decades of experience in, venture capital law, corporate securities law, consulting, entrepreneurship, digital media, blah, 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 right? And people didn't, in my opinion, and I've got an MBA with honors from Johns Hopkins and a Master in Communication with A+ from Johns Hopkins, etc. And people my feeling was not how much can you help us? What do you bring? People oh yeah, and it's and I've said that in other videos, but it's they didn't respect what I'm bringing to the table and what I'm saying, and my analysis has been very much accurate. in my opinion. That's not just me saying that. Go back and look at it. What have I said about crypto? What have I said about Miami Tech? What have I said about the players? What have I said about the whole thing? It's all come true. Not all of it. Nothing. I want to be 100%. Let me rise and extend that. In my opinion, a lot of it's come true. Okay? And what I was saying then, what I'm saying now, what Paul's saying now, in my opinion, is if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. This game is hard. I've spent decades of it. I'm a super genius. I've been at the best. I've been at the some of the top schools in the world and stuff like that. I have spent so much time on this. It's not even funny. Almost a decade in graduate school at top schools. Over a decade, if not decades, in the field. Tremendous. And you know what? I mean, it's not easy. So the idea that someone that's just like, and listen, there's no, if you think you can do it, go do it. But the idea that, hey, guess what? I don't want to name names. I don't want to punk anyone out. But I graduated from a community college here, or I'm still in a community college, or number 200 ranked, school or whatever. And I'm gonna just, and everyone, and we're gonna hang out and drink mojitos or mai tais or whatever. Any, name it. It doesn't matter. Cosmopolitan doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? Whatever you're gonna do. And do a VC pitch in the club, and somehow that makes sense. It doesn't make sense. It to me, it's fine. Like, I'm cool. I'm down with everything. I love, again, peace, love, opportunity, freedom. For everybody, obviously. But it's like it makes a mockery, and to some degree, it makes a mockery of how hard this game is. Venture capital, private equity is high risk. That's why you get those returns, because it's high risk. You have to take the risk. And Silicon Valley Bank, I got to say, I'm not making a policy call here. We're going to talk about, we're doing analysis, took a risk. They were heavy levered, focus on high risk stuff. And it's not super duper surprising that at some point it doesn't work, that the risk, that the bet didn't pay off. So the idea that everybody can do this, and also I'll say this, I'll swerve it back to the political thing here. Look, a 50% strategy is not a 100% strategy. That's why I said before, I had some, when you're like, hey, we're going to shadow ban conservatives, and we don't want, and we have censorship and the Twitter files, and we have all these things going on that tech is part of. If you're punking out your customers, if you're punking out your partners, if you may or may not only hire certain, people that fit your political profile or your worldview or whatever that is, that's not a really good way to win. That doesn't make sense. I want the top talent everywhere. Again, that gets away, in my opinion. I'm not speaking from them. What myself, Elon Musk, Steve Wozniak, Jobs, all these people, Nolan Bushnell, we're doing in the old Silicon Valley, the best of the best, doing the best, taking the real risk. And so then you have a situation like Disney here in Florida, and I don't want to get into every little, I'm trying to cover it at a high level, but this is important to think about, right? And how it all comes around, how we get out of this, together. How do we do real business? This is where I want to get to. I'm not here to score political points. I do have to give you analysis, right? That's why people tune into me. Okay. You can't be a company, global brand that is built on family fun, and you punk out a significant portion of your customer base. I don't want to get into specifics. I don't care. This is not what this video is about. But that doesn't make sense, and that's what, Paul, you're saying about Marvel, right?
It is. And, of course, Disney owns Marvel.
Oh, right, yeah, I forgot. Right. It doesn't make sense. So here's how it comes around. And I want to be careful how I say this. You have some of the absolute smartest people in the world around Silicon Valley. You know what I mean? And it wouldn't surprise me if someone smarter than me, right? Okay, fine. How many of these people voted for President Biden? I'd say probably a very high percentage, Very high percentage of Sand Hill Road probably voted for President Biden. Very high percentage of depositors and the employees of wouldn't surprise me of Silicon Valley Bank executives voted for President Biden. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Right? I haven't seen the polls. I'm not making a claim, but I've seen different polls out there, and people are coming in and out. I'm not trying to offend anyone. I'm trying to give you analysis here, to something to think about for your own life, your own business, how we get out of this. This is what Elon Musk is talking about. This is what I'm losing it. Russell Brand is talking about. This is what Bill Maher is talking about. This is what Barry Weiss is talking about. I mean, I'm not speaking for anyone else. People on all sides are talking about getting out of this madness, right? First of all, doing good business that makes sense. When it's a bubble, when everyone thinks they're a VC, that doesn't make sense, right? When you're a 50% strategy, we're only going to do business with these people. We're going to boycott. We're not going to hire. We're not going to, do all that stuff. That doesn't make sense. We're not going to invest in. That doesn't make sense. We're not going to let people in schools. That doesn't make sense. You are limiting yourself. It makes no sense. This 2023 and it's starting is the year of reality. Reality is hitting hard. It just hit Silicon Valley depositors hard. So here's my point. Here's where I'm going with this. How many of those people voted for President Biden? Probably a lot. And what's the first thing that this administration did? One of the first things, not the first thing. One of the early things that this administration did, and I'm not trying to score political points here. I'm just trying to do analysis the best I could be wrong. I could be 100% wrong. I'm just trying to give you the best analysis I can. They shut down the Keystone XL pipeline. And so what happens? They're very much into green energy and climate tech, and you may be super supportive of that. A lot of California, Governor Newsom, he's going to run, right? A lot of people are in that. I mean, they were talking about some of this stuff. There's a lot of climate tech stuff going on in Miami Tech too, mostly more crypto, but in my opinion. But okay, so wherever you are on that, and look, I'm a fan of Tesla. Everybody wants clean air and clean water. I don't know who doesn't want that. People are. Let's put all that aside. It's not about the merits of this, but what it is about is when you make energy inputs expensive, because who doesn't run on energy? Which homes, which businesses, which tech businesses don't need energy, right? Which economies don't need energy? Major, big economies. Which economies don't need energy? They all do. So if energy prices are going up, what does that do? Inflation goes up. If people are still not working because we got different supply chain things, and they, some people are coming back to work, some weren't, and over years ago there were lockdowns, different things, whatever. So now you have a supply chain inflationary pressures. This is basic economics. People are specialists, but I'm a specialist and a generalist, so I see different things, right? I've done a lot of economics, and so that was what I was going to major in college at first, and I've done lots of law and economics. I'm very good at that. So what happens in that environment is it's going to cause outsized pressures on the economy. That's what caused, in part, this Silicon Valley Bank breakdown. Interest rates went way up. They had bets at low interest rates. They put a lot of money on bonds at low interest rates, and then interest rates went way up. So what I'm saying is, it's policies that don't make sense. Don't make sense. Do whatever you want. Vote for whoever you want to. This is not about left, right. I'm just trying to give you analysis, because those policies and Silicon Valley and tech, very much probably left wing. We've seen that, right? When there are various reports, I don't want to get too into that. I don't want to make this into that, but I'm saying these policies have impacts. And now this has impacted some people's companies, their life savings, all of these things. Now, I'm not saying that if, who knows what would have happened if, if there's different policies were in there, if inflation wasn't so high, if whatever. But I can just see it. Again, I don't want to make it a left-right thing, but we went from a situation before President Biden got in there where interest rates were low and everything like that, and then things changed, right? Because there's been a policy shift. So where do we go from here? This is why I'm saying I had to talk about the political aspect of this, because now this is not an easy political choice, I don't think. I may be missing it. I'm reacting hot live right now, and I want Paul's take on this, because we've got student loans coming in here. 2024 is underway. I mean, we have people on both sides that have come into the race. East Palestine has just happened. Tech companies are already paring down. Elon Musk has shown an example of, hey, you know what? You can maybe do more with less. There is a big pushback globally on a lot of stuff, a lot of the things that have been going on. But I also think there's interesting conversations too, right? About 4-day work week, work from home. I don't think it's like going left, right, necessarily going back. I think we're going to go forward. There's a huge opportunity too, and I think some bank, either Silicon Valley Bank or a bank like Silicon Valley Bank, is so crucial and so important to the ecosystem, and it really it may give a chance now for people to say, hey, maybe we need other tech areas that aren't that are done differently. Maybe a neutral tech, I can't remember the gentleman. I don't want to mispronounce the name. I'm gonna mess up the name, and I really apologize. Vishwami, who just came in, the biotech CEO, Paul.
Yeah, I can't remember the name.
I can't remember it. I really apologize. I will look it up. Vivek, and he's brilliant.
Oh yeah.
He's brilliant, and I mean he can speak.
The guy that's running for office.
Guy that's running for president, absolutely right. And so, I think this is going to open up conversations now, right, about having tech hubs that are maybe more neutral or conservative or whatever, or just getting politics out of tech. I mean, people can do whatever they want, of course. Of course. I mean, First Amendment, all that type of stuff. But there's been when politics are everywhere and it's all hyperpartisan, it's too much. And for Silicon Valley writ large, to already you see these people coming and reporters coming on saying there should be a 1-to-1 bailout. Do you know how that hits people that maybe got fired, lost their jobs, got laid off, East Palestine, other places, where they're losing their homes, where some people have been told to learn the code or stuff like that. Do you understand how it hits people? There is no easy way out here for either side. And believe me, there's people on a lot of people on the Republican side, love that tech money too. So, and banks, I mean, traditionally, we've seen a history of banks getting bailed out, in my opinion. And then you had energy, with the Occupy Wall. I mean, Bernie Sanders. It's gonna be really interesting. I mean, Paul, what do you think Bernie Sanders and Senator Sanders, Senator Warren will say about this? I mean, how do you see the politics? This is just very fascinating.
Yeah, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what Sanders and Warren say. I just think overall, we've already touched on it. I think that overall, politically and just in general, just got to get back to, we got to take the politics out of it, which we said. You got to get back to smart productivity, like what Elon's showing with cutting down the Twitter workforce. And if you do these, like way down, if you do business with other considerations, it's not just business, like politics and stuff, at some point the bill's going to come due. And that's what's happening right now. And so it's like eventually it's going to fall back to simple practices and axioms. Like you do business for the best business, the best profit, not for the best politics.
Exactly. And the thing is, I feel like people have talked about this with Wall Street and with bailouts. It's capitalism on the way up and socialism on the way down. Like, heads I win, tails you lose. It's like, and I think that if there was a feeling like, first of all, America, I'm not speaking for America. I love technology. I love the game. I love entrepreneurship. I mean, some of my best years, my best memories are absolutely in Silicon Valley. So many great entrepreneurs out there. And the true heroes, the true entrepreneurs, the true visionaries, and this includes professional services, people, the lawyers or accountants or iBank or stuff like that. They may vote this way, I may vote another way, but that game respects game. Like they're great people. They understand the love I have for it. They understand the love they have for the great work that they're doing. I mean, unfortunately, this is going to, no matter what, I think this is going to devastate so many great companies, great entrepreneurs, great people, just bad timing out there. And I feel terribly for those people. But it also goes to, sometimes it's like, to the extent that there's a feeling that there is this, it's not hypocrisy, it's hierarchy, that we've heard that talked about on the right. In other words, like, if I just say the right things, if I vote the right way, I can't lose, right? I mean, I'm all for climate tech or whatever the thing is, right? And then I'm always so. Is there a do you have a these are some super smart people, like we all have to do our diligence. There's no guarantees about anything. Okay, so if you're super smart and you've made all this money, you gotta it's I'm not telling anyone, I'm not giving anyone financial advice, but there's a lot of people a lot smarter than me on financial stuff that have talked about diversification. I mean, it's due diligence. You know what I mean? Like you have to. If it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. So I don't know. I mean, I just I don't know what else to say at this point. Shocking news, important news. There's a lot more I can say. I don't want to, say the wrong thing, but I think we've covered a lot of ground now. I think that it went way longer than I thought I expected. But I'm telling you, there's other people that are like, oh, this is the beginning of the crap. I don't know. I'm not prepared to say that. Maybe, but this is a very focused thing. But as I said, and I did predict this earlier, 3 months, 6 months ago, that it wouldn't surprise me if the pain that a lot of Main Street, blue collar restaurateurs, hospitality felt during the pandemic was now going to flip, and you're going to see it in the Zoom economy, the tech economy, that pain's coming because there's one economy. That's why I said there's one economy. You can't have a super profitable company if you don't have customers that can buy your goods. It doesn't work, and someone, trucks and planes and transportation ships everything that you buy online, et cetera, right? There's no teleporters and things like that. Like, it doesn't, like, people have to get real. This is what I'm saying. Number one, tech business should not be political. Number one. Number two, things have to make sense. Number three, you have to do diligence, and the only way to make money and outsized gains and big profits and all of that is to add tremendous value and to have high growth situations. That's just for anything, right? Number four, I think a lot of people going forward. So we need to get into a space where we can talk to each other, hang out, disagree, still do business, still be friends, still go to buy whatever like that. Like this like, come on. We're all on this planet together. Like this, whatever crazy hyper partisanship stuff has gone on, it's got to end. Because the idea that you can win and I lose, or I can win and you lose, or half the country wins and half the country loses, and we're still going to be better than ever, and you're going to be better than ever, I'm going to be better. That's craziness. It's got to end. It's got to stop. Doesn't make sense. And no one really maybe some people do. But most people do not live their lives this way. So why are we talked into this craziness in public spaces, on social media, in voting? When you watch the news, so much to the degree that's a caricature of reality. It's just not real. So that's what I said. 2023 is about getting back to reality. But listen, and again, I'm not giving anybody advice out there or whatever, but for myself, like, I'm making decisions about what I want to do. I want to get back into venture capital. I want to get back into tech. Do I want to try to pass the bar here in Florida? Whatever. Let's look at different things. I'll talk more about me. I don't want to make this about me, but I'm working on stuff with my wife. I think we got a clear path with her. I think I've got stuff going on with myself. I've been moving. I've been talking to you about, and it just came up. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go for a defensive play. Going to do some offensive stuff too. But I think this is, I was talking about this may be a very challenging year or couple years. It's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out, because I think people are out of, where's the Fed go from here? What does the Biden administration do? What do lawmakers do? There's a lot of, what do we do now? And then people want to beat up on Elon, but Elon's stuff works. So, Paul, what's your final take on wrapping up?
Yeah, look, I think all of that makes sense, and it is going to be interesting to see where the Fed and where the Biden administration goes from here, because there's going to be some real choices depending on what the Supreme Court does with the student loans, depending on what do they decide to do with the potential bailout of Silicon Valley Bank and so forth. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on.
So think about that politically. You bail out Silicon Valley Bank, whatever, 100, 200, 300 billion dollars, but you don't do anything about student loans. How's that work? You bail out student loans, you don't do anything with Silicon Valley Bank. You bail out both of them. Where are the Republicans? I mean, this is gonna get interesting. This is gonna get politically, and listen, this is real pain, real life, and I wish everybody the best. I hope everybody, but the way, in my opinion, the way to do the best is to get back to basics, be smart, do your diligence, work hard, add value, do all that type of stuff. And sometimes the coolest thing is a defensive play. I'm seeing this now from a lot of creators out there on YouTube and stuff. I'm seeing great content out there, LinkedIn, a lot of discussions out there about people like the quiet quitting. It's all coming around, right? All these things relate. What do people want? What do businesses want? What's really going to move the needle? How do you excite? How do you attract talent? It's the same thing. How do you do something important and impressive and great? And if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense, right? How do you inspire people? I think a defensive play may be the cool play right now. We've seen different things go into Fed. I mean, before it was the big professions, lawyer, doctor, accountant, iBanker, that type of stuff. And then it was the tech thing, and then it was entrepreneurship, and there's influencers. We've seen different things. I think going forward, I think it's up for grabs. I think all those things are interesting. I think it's up for grabs. So I think people are sort of reclaiming their own time, their own space. I think there's a lot. I definitely am very bullish on entrepreneurship going forward. I hope something good happens for SVB, but at the same time, you got to be responsible. I'm not making any recommendations or any calls. I think everyone's got to be responsible for their own moves, right? And these are very smart people, and they're big people, and they, I'll leave that to the policymakers. I'll react to whatever. I'm not making any calls, but I have unfortunately, I don't want to say too much, but I think Silicon Valley and tech has gotten very much astray from what it was and the original promise of it, and it's gotten way too political and way too away, forget about the politics, way too away from fundamentals and things that make sense. And it's time to come back to fundamentals. And I think 2023 is a return to fundamentals. But no matter what happens, and I wish the best for everybody, I wish you the best, I wish you the family the best, I wish your company the best. No matter what happens, I've got a good place, a great place in my heart for Silicon Valley Bank. It was a champion, a great institution and everything like that. And I hope that there is a return to, fundamentals for Silicon Valley and tech, and we get politics out of this and we find a way to work together. Because if we haven't figured out now, we will never be as great as we can be unless we are together and work together and do the right things, right? I promise you, I'm not going to go out there and try to be a nuclear physicist, because that's not what I'm about. So people should do what they're great at and what they're interested in. And I'm not telling anyone what to do, but I'm just telling you that when everyone wants to invest in housing, maybe a bubble. When everyone wants to be a VC, maybe a bubble, et cetera, et cetera. So let's see where this goes. This is a crucial story. I had to say something. I hope I made sense, and I mean it from the best. And again, peace, love, harmony, opportunity, equality, liberty, everything for everybody. Let's figure out how to get back to fundamentals and work together. Let's do that. I hope I made sense. I hope you understand where this is coming from. Anything you want to say and wrapping up, Paul?
Yeah, I think that's good. We've covered a lot of stuff, and again, maybe you'll do some more on this in the time to come, but I think it's good little summary.
Yeah, it's a good summary. I just had to say something because I've seen a lot of stuff out there, and there's a lot of great reporting out there. Fantastic. I'll link some stuff in the YouTube. I'm not saying I'm not super reporter, but I think I had other angles and other aspects in here, because this is a big, in my opinion. It's hard to overstate this, and I wanted to give my perspective on that. Depending on what happens, maybe I'll share some SVB stories and all types of stuff like that, and Valley stories. But I think that, you know, in an hour here, we covered a lot of ground. And I want you to think out there, because information is power, and I want you to think out there. So I hope that was helpful. If you like this video at all, please give me a thumbs up and a like. It would help me out there. Love to answer your comments down there. I wish you and your family, your company, whoever, anywhere around the world, all the best. For Paul, I'm John D. Villarreal. I'll see you next time.